SANDCAST, beach volleyball with Bourne and Travis Mewhirter, presented as always by our wonderful sponsors at volleyballmag.com. And we are back for the first time in a while at our Bourne on the Beach studios.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a little bit.
Yeah.
And we have a really fun guest in today. We have Mrs. Patty Dodd. How are we doing today?
Hello, Travis and Tri. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Happy Memorial Day.
Glad
we could steal you on a holiday.
That's probably why you got me here. No practice today.
Yeah. And so with practice, I guess explain to our listeners what's keeping you busy. So what practices are we talking about that you're running?
Yes, so I started a beach volleyball club 2.5 years ago. It's called MB Sand, stands for Manhattan Beach Sand Volleyball Club. We practice south of the Manhattan Beach Pier. Very iconic place, and is for 10 to 17-year-old boys and girls. And we normally practice on Mondays and Fridays, but we are off today.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in the grassroots movement for boys getting into beach volleyball. Because with the college game with the girls now, it's starting to get into high school too. It seems like the grassroots and the feeder system for the women is exploding. But I feel like it's kind of one-sided there because I feel like the boys are really lacking. How is the boys' grassroots movement just in terms of getting 12-year-old guys into beach volleyball instead of, say, lacrosse or basketball or football?
Okay, so I actually want to talk about USA High Performance because I think that's where we're starting to see some growth. I have been with the High Performance Youth Program. This is my 7th year. And, 6 years ago, the level was low, or we could barely get enough boys to fill an A1 team, which commonly is the top 10 kids in the country. And that is changing. Last weekend, we had selection weekend where kids from all over the country come. And I can honestly say I was really, really impressed by the U19s, U17s, and U15 levels. The U13 boys, still, we don't have the numbers quite yet for it to be super competitive, but I see hope there. Now, as far as my club goes, our population is about 90% girls, 10% boys. So it's something that, I'm trying to push and ask boys and families to send their kids to practice. I actually just had a Queen of the Beach scrimmage and King of the Beach scrimmage. So we had 16 boys of U14 age, and they had a blast. And this was Saturday, so super fun.
I always think that as long as the girls, because the girls is blowing up and getting bigger and bigger, as long as the girls keeps growing, I feel like the boys will follow. And, it's still it's still not where we want it to be, and in comparison to the girls, it's small. But me looking back, and when I was a kid, I came out from Hawaii and I played in a little AAU tournament, and it was literally I came out. Me and Riley McKibben were just hanging out, and they were begging us to play in this tournament because there was 2 teams in it, and so we came out and we played in it, and then at the end of it they called us national U19 or U18. National champions, and it's still on my BVB, but we really basically went in scrimmage 2 teams, and I don't think they all read it and think I was some youth champion. But yeah, it's crazy. At least it's growing from back then, and the national team program is fairly strong, right? There's some really good talent from what I hear on these young teams, even on the men's side or the boys' side.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah. We have actually, there was a tournament in Cuba just yesterday, and our women took second, and our men, this is U19, and our men took bronze. Mm-hmm. So definitely, the numbers with the boys might not be really big like we would like them to be, but the quality of those few players is really good.
Nice. I need to start writing names down for future partners.
Uh-huh.
And that was Timmy Brewster and John Schwengel, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I love those kids.
Yeah.
Because every AVP Next, every CBVA, literally every tournament that I play in, they're always there.
They're beach rats.
Yeah.
You look in the dictionary, they're right there at the top of the list. Beach rats, like you, Travis.
Yeah, and they're great players too.
Yes.
They have the sweetest hands, and they're just still waiting to grow and fill out a little bit. But once they do, like, I mean, they're taking thirds in Cuba.
Yeah. Partain brothers, super fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now you're also involved with the USAV, kind of not just the high performance youth level team, but the upper echelons, right? Coaching the big boys.
Yeah, the senior team. Well, that's Tyler Hildebrand is the headmaster coach for that program. And he started, now we're finishing our second month of Monday, Wednesday practices with the A1 and A2 senior teams. So it's about 16 or so athletes get invited to that per gender. I get to try there on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we're having a really good time with this group. Tyler is innovative and creative with his practices, is high reps of a lot of out-of-system touches that players normally don't get during a regular practice. So I think the players are enjoying it. We see it with the numbers of returnees to practice.
Yeah, it's kind of blowing my mind when I go down, because I've been in part of the system for years now, and you've always been on your own. It's never been like it was when I played indoor. I played a little bit on the indoor national team, but I show up today at practice, and we got Hayden out there, we got Reed Priddy out there, we got pretty much everyone. Nick Lucena was there. It's like almost our entire national team was there and bought into this system within a month or two of Tyler getting hired, which kind of blows my mind, because I was a little slow to buy in. Like, all right, like, are we really going to all train together? We're kind of enemies, we want to train against each other and not show each other all our skills. But Hildebrand's got a good system going. He's got everyone bought in pretty early, and he's trying to get us to take that extra step that a lot of the European and Brazilian teams are taking. And I think it's going to work out for the best for the U.S. national team.
Absolutely. I mean, the men need to practice against the top men, because you guys just don't have many choices. The women can still train against, some AA players, some decent men, and get some good training. But the men absolutely depend on each other to get better.
Yeah.
I feel like this is something that the USAV has been missing for a little bit, and now, because like when we had Sam Schachter and Sam Pedlow on, Canada's #1 team, they said that they got invited to go to Brazil, and what they found was like astounding. They were like, they would have 10 coaches per team. They had 2 guys that were just there. They were called shoulder guys, because they would just rip balls off boxes at them. And I feel like that's what we've been missing. And now we brought Tyler in, who, from what I understand, is almost unanimously well liked and well respected. And we have all the top teams practicing and getting these reps, because one of the biggest things is that when you practice with a high-level team, and only one of them has a coach and the other one doesn't, the practices are sort of random, because one team wants to work on one thing and one team wants to work on another thing, and you're sort of just like, all right, we can do this drill for 5 minutes and then switch. And I feel like we're taking a step in the right direction, I feel like.
Absolutely. And Tyler has been great at recruiting volunteers. So if you want to call him shoulder guys, or
kind of. Ben Vaught was down there today.
Benny Boo?
And
Eric Baranek was there.
Eric Baranek.
Yeah.
It's like if the numbers are off and someone needs a partner, that player's there and they can jump in and get the reps. If there's too many guys, you're going to be out for that drill. But these young players, like Travis will probably be out there soon, are getting at least to watch. Like just this, I've been playing at this highest level, and I'm there just to watch and absorb all this information. So it's really cool for the up-and-coming players too.
And now I want to get into your story a little bit and how you found yourself in the position that you are helping out with some of the best players in the United States. Now, you are native of Bogota, Colombia?
Bogota.
My apologies. You learn something new every day.
That's all right. And Colombia with an O, by the way.
I've been hearing good things about Colombia more and more lately.
It's a phenomenal place to visit. It had the bad rap during the 90s and early 80s. With all the drug trafficking, but now it's safe to go and it's absolutely beautiful. People are very friendly. Going to Cartagena is amazing. And, I'm from Bogota, so I'm very partial to that city.
Bogota.
Yes.
And so I know that you came over to the United States to play for UCLA.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
So I actually had graduated early from high school. I was 16 and a half, and I really wanted to learn English. And we had a connection here in Santa Fe Springs in LA. Our friend Molly Kavanagh had a volleyball club, and she had heard that I was a decent volleyball player and said, hey, come over. You can stay at my house. I can host you. You play for my club, and you can stay here for 6 months and then go back home. So I came. I played for her club. I got recruited by multiple schools, almost went to USC. But aside from marrying my husband, the best decision I ever made was going to UCLA, and loved my time there. My 5th year, I was assistant coach, and we won the NC2As, and I was hooked. I thought, wow, this coaching thing is definitely for me. So that's how it came about, from learning English to getting into UCLA.
So you learned English on the fly when you moved here?
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I started taking ESL classes at the community school, and it was a little too slow. So my friend that I was staying with, she was a high school teacher, and she spoke with other high school teachers that will allow me to sit in class, not for grades, but just to listen and get used to it, and got a couple old textbooks, and I would just translate every night, and I pretty much taught myself English, and
awesome.
I'm still learning.
Wow. Yeah, and well, I'd say you speak it pretty well right now.
I tried to learn Spanish, but...
How about if I say I speak it pretty good? Just kidding. I speak pretty well.
And already you have a better grasp of grammar than 99% of Americans.
Than me.
Well,
Let's
Try speaks pigeon, so
exactly.
He's been trying to teach me too. It's slow. Yeah. It's slow going. So
Travis is gonna teach me correct English grammar. I'm gonna teach him pigeon.
And I'm always so curious as to what the volleyball culture is like in other countries. So how was it? How is the volleyball in Colombia? Is it a big deal? Is it sort of a side sport?
It's definitely a side sport. It's not like in Brazil, where it's such a big deal, second to soccer, right up there with basketball. In Colombia, it's soccer king, cycling second, and volleyball a far. I couldn't even tell you what number.
You say cycling?
Cycling is big time in Colombia, yeah. I think because of all the hills, and so the players have really good endurance because they practice at a high altitude. So, I play for Bogota's team, I play for the national team, and we didn't have any beach volleyball then. There is a little bit of beach volleyball now, but it's not, it's nothing big.
And so did you begin to play beach when you began at UCLA? Because I know that UCLA is so close to
yeah,
some of the biggest
so
beach volleyball
actually
cultures.
One of my teammates and a great beach volleyball player herself, Liz Masakayan, will talk me into going down to the pier in Santa Monica, and it was a great gig because we will do that in the spring when we didn't have indoor stuff. And one of our teammates worked at Lemonade on a stick. So all we had to do was buy one corn dog.
Hot dog
on a stick. Thank you.
I remember that place.
Yes. Okay, it's not hot dog, lemonade.
Is the lemonade on a stick.
Yes.
That's like a popsicle, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Sorry.
I remember going down there when I first started playing and just trying to find games, and there's a guy just sitting there the whole time playing the same song. Get your hot dog on a stick. It's like still in my head because it was just like the same verse over and over for like every time I went down there. But
yeah. So one of our teammates worked for that little stand right underneath the pier. So all we needed to do, you're a poor college student, buy your corn dog on a stick, buy your lemonade, and then you were set for the rest of the day because you could have free refills through her. And we would just play and play and play and play. Actually, Wilt Chamberlain will play a lot there, so we played a lot with him, against them, and with him, it was pretty entertaining to play because he would everything was always the partner's fault. And a lot of trash talk. But really, it was Liz that kind of got me started in playing, and it was my 4th year. Yeah, I was a senior when she called me one Saturday out of the blue. My partner is sick. She can't play. You want to play in the tournament? And I said, okay. I mean, I was still, pretty green, and we ended up taking second, and then we started, we played a lot after that.
And when you say tournament too, so the AVP it wasn't united in both men and women until 2001. So I'm interested, like, what was it like to be a woman professional beach volleyball player in the mid 80s? Because I know the WPVA was around for a little bit, but that was kind of up and down. So what were your options like in terms of beach tournaments?
So I played for the WPVA. I was on the board of directors for the WPVA. And then it was actually in the late 90s that the AVP started to invite women's teams. And they invited only 8 for a while until it became officially, just the home for both the men and women tour. There was definitely inequality in money, but that's the 80s and 90s for you. It's a different time for women today, so now the prize money is equal.
And with the WPVA, like I haven't really been able to find much on it. Like there's not many YouTube videos of the WPVA. What was it like? I'm just so curious as to like how it was run, what the tournaments were like, that sort of thing.
We had a couple of really good sponsors, so there were definitely some really good times there. Hilton Hotel was title sponsor, Coors Light was involved, and the prize money was not as good as the AVP, but the level of competition was really good. I had a particularly good year in '89 with Jackie Silva, who ended up winning gold in 1996 in Atlanta, the first time Olympics, had beach volleyball as a sport. So I have fond memories. I don't think I was playing for the money.
Right.
I was a school teacher. During all that time, I taught school, and that having summers off allowed me to do both. I remember I got really good about putting on my suit as I left work to try and get to the beach by 4 to practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you were a kindergarten ESL teacher?
I taught kindergarten,
okay.
Yes, for a few years. And then I stopped teaching and I started doing beach volleyball for a while only. And then when I stopped playing, I went back to teaching. So I've always kind of like have one or both or something like that.
I feel like, being a teacher, it probably helped you with coaching and vice versa. Have you just always had a knack for just working with people and helping them along?
There's a great quote by John Wooden, and I should know this by heart, but it's about how being a teacher helps you with coaching tremendously, because what teachers have that a coach doesn't gain that training anywhere is the ability to manage children. And if you can't manage kids, then you cannot teach them and eventually coach them. So that is definitely a gift that I feel I got from all those years of teaching.
Uh-huh. And I know that so I teach a couple journalism classes, and I know that one of the best ways to actually learn your own craft is to teach it too. Because I'll be teaching some of these things to my kids, and I'm like, God, I got to do this in my own stories. Mm-hmm. Did you get any of that? Like when you were coaching kids, even with volleyball, were you finding yourself like thinking, I should probably keep implementing this in my own game too?
Well, you know what? I didn't start really officially like coaching for real until I was done playing.
Okay.
And I think that often, wow, if I knew everything that I know today, then I would have won more. But that's okay. I'm happy to give it to this next generation. I truly believe that being a good player doesn't make you a good coach. Actually, my kids got curious about volleyball when they were about, my oldest one, Dallas, when she was 12. And she's like, Mommy, can you coach me? And I'm like, ugh. I was a bit scared, like, what do I do? And I actually took a couple of Gold Medal Square clinics, and the people there do a fantastic job of breaking everything down. It was an amazing experience for me. I got to listen to Carl McGowan and Marv Dunphy teach me how to teach fundamentals. And so, it has been a learning process. I'm still learning today. At every practice, there's something, as many things could click for a child or an adult in practice, things click for me too. It's like, oh, wow, I worded that differently today, and that made it easier for them to understand it.
You mentioned that you wish you knew or implemented some of the things, but that said, you had a pretty phenomenal career. I mean, you mentioned a successful season in '89, but you and Jackie won 11 of 13 tournaments. Yeah, that's a pretty good year.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, that was fun times. Playing with her was challenging. She was so intense. And this was in the days of big court and side-out scoring. And, you could be down 11-2, but Jackie believed that you could still win. Pretty amazing experience to play with her. But, grateful to all the different partners that I had.
And you got your name on the pier as well?
I did. Right? I did.
I remember walking across that a few times.
I have a funny story for you about that. So, I don't know if the listeners know who my husband is, Mike Dodd, and he has 5 plaques on the pier.
Yeah.
So they had the ceremony when they first put the plaques on the pier. I want to say this was like maybe 20 years ago, 18 years ago. So Dallas, my oldest one, was little, and I called her over. Hey, honey, look at the beach reporter. Mom and Dad's names are on the paper. And she looks and she studies the paper for a minute, and she's like, oh, but your name is there only once. The kids put you right where you belong. So, now sometimes my own players will walk by the pier and they're like, oh, we didn't know your name was on the pier. And I'm like, yeah, just keep the dogs from peeing on the plaque.
Yeah. Make them aim somewhere else.
Yeah.
Does it ever get old to walk by your name on the Manhattan Beach Pier?
I can't remember the last time I walked on the pier it might have been 3 years ago because Two Guns had coffee at the end. But I definitely don't like walk over and look at it or polish it. But it's definitely kind of like in the back of your,
it's there.
It's there, yeah.
You always have that.
It's like nobody can take it away from you.
You picked up the beach game pretty quick then, because you said that you graduated from UCLA in 84?
84.
84, and then you really only started playing just then in 89. You were winning 11 of 13, got your Manhattan Beach Open title. How did you go about developing that beach skill set so fast? Because especially, indoor you got 6 players, and then you go out to the beach, it's just 2 on, and then it was the same. Big court was the same size as indoor, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
in those
really?
days
So that's a huge difference.
Huge. Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
You know what? I think 2 good teachers. One was Liz, and then I started dating my husband in 85. And one of the things, our first date actually, is he picked me up at UCLA, and we came down to Marine Street, and here's crash course on beach volleyball, and he taught me a lot about the game, and went to the Kettle for lunch, and he's like, whoa, if you get taken to the Kettle for lunch, he's serious. So we've been married for 33 years.
That's awesome. That's and you guys were either the first or only married couple to win an Open title in the same year.
We were the first, but now Casey and Carrie, I think, have that at their names as well.
That's right.
BVB's got to update it.
And Casey being so competitive, I think when they did it a couple years ago, he called us right away. I'm like, oh, all right, Casey, join the club. There's only 4 of us in it.
Maybe we can all go to dinner at the Kettle.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
That's great, though. And then, in 96, so, Mike wins a silver medal and your partner, Jackie, wins a gold medal. That was probably a pretty fun Olympics for you.
Oh, it was super fun to watch. And, it's one of those timing things that the beach volleyball all kind of came quickly to fruition with being an Olympic sport. And I just could not get my citizenship for the U.S. in time. So I couldn't play for Colombia because we just didn't have a good enough team. And so, yeah, I missed out a little bit on that. But as a spectator, Dallas was 3.5 years old, and we both got to witness just an amazing first Olympics for beach volleyball. That was really, really special.
Now we're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. This podcast is brought to you by Wilson Volleyball. The AVP season is back, hallelujah, which means, guess what? We are back to playing with Wilson Volleyballs again, and the college girls plays with Wilson, and the CBVA plays with Wilson, the AVP plays with Wilson. There is a reason that all of the pros and those about to become pros play with Wilsons, all right? It is the best ball in the game. It is the one the pros use, and the one that you should use as well. And the good news is that you can get 20% off by using our discount code WilsonSand. All right, and I'll say that one more time. You can get 20% off by using our discount code WilsonSand for 20% off of the best balls in the game. This podcast is also brought to you by Firefly Recovery. Listen, we're all athletes here for the most part, which means that we are all aching in some way or other or sore somewhere. All right, and a lot of times this is our knees, which is where Firefly Recovery comes into play, which is why I love them so much. So if you're one of those weird people who go to work every day, like I do, you can strap this onto your knee while you're sitting at your desk, and it helps you recover by moving the blood around in the region. I'm not a scientist. I don't know exactly how it works. You can go to fireflyrecovery.com. They have all sorts of testimonials and information out there. But what I just want to say is that it works. Like if you're traveling on a plane to an FIVB or a NORCECA or to AVP Austin or to AVP New York or Seattle or wherever it may be, use Firefly Recovery on the plane. It'll help you recover while you're sitting there on your plane ride, talking to people that you probably don't want to be talking to anyway. So use Firefly Recovery to be the best athlete that you can be. And now, back to the show. And especially, Mike has seen it, go through a lot of different times, but as a woman too, you've seen the game evolve in so many different ways, from having just the CBVA run the women's tour to the WPBA, and then the women were on the AVP, and then the AVP went bankrupt, and now we're back. Just from your perspective, how much has the game evolved and changed and grown? Because now we're seeing it where, like you said before, the men got paid way more and there are only 8 women's teams invited. And now you look at the AVP now and the women's field is way deeper than the men's.
And the
crazy.
Women have been the face of our tour for over a decade now, really, if you think about it. It's been Carrie and Misty, April, that have really been the face of our tours for a long time now. Yeah,
I think winning gold and
right.
doing it
sure.
over and over is definitely going to bring exposure to the game. So we should all be so grateful to these two ladies that have put beach volleyball on the map, and I think that trickles down to NC2A and its popularity, and is now in its third year of being an official sport, and also to kids. What kids can do in beach volleyball now is pretty amazing. In my club, I have a third grader that's AAA, and that's just incredible that at 13 you can accomplish that. I have a lot of kids that are AA, and quite a few. I had 22 kids at selection weekend, so about 10 made the A1 national team, and the other 12 made A2.
Have you and Mike thought about coaching a college program?
No.
No?
Slightly spoken, but I find, even though it sounds neat, I find the recruiting piece really, really difficult. So I think, with the club, I get to coach and teach and see the kids progress and get better. And, the boys and girls gain so much confidence from learning and getting better at their craft. And that's incredibly rewarding. And if I had to, on top of that, add recruiting, and it's a really difficult part of the college job, I'd rather spend my time with the kids.
It's very complicated, and there's a lot more than just volleyball you have to deal with. You have to deal with NCAA violations and rules and all those sanctions that you have to avoid. And you're almost running a business when you're not that you're not when you're running a club, but it's more customized to what you want to do.
Yeah, and you could, as a college coach, you could be after 20 players and only get one or two.
Right. Instead, you're kind of providing those recruits for the college coaches, right? So you're kind of doing it from the other side of things, where you're getting these players ready and developing them for what these coaches want, maybe, and then they get to go to the school that they fit in most.
Absolutely,
right?
Yes.
And how much do you fill in that gap between the players and the coaches? Do you keep in touch with some of the NCAA coaches?
I have to, because the grand majority of my kids are fall under junior year, and so coaches cannot directly talk to anybody before September 1st of their junior year, unless the contact is initiated by the athlete and the college coach happens to be available around the phone. So there's a lot of three-way communication between the college coach, the club coach, and the family or the kid.
That's huge for your club girls to have you, because I'm guessing there's not a college coach you don't really know, right?
It helps. It absolutely helps. It absolutely helps because, I ask the kids, okay, prepare your introduction letter, and I have a template that they can go draw from, and then upload some highlight video, 3 to 4 minutes long. College coaches don't want to watch much longer than that. And I follow up that with a phone call, because it's surprising how many don't get a response back. I think the college coaches might be overwhelmed. So sometimes I think the phone call from somebody that they know definitely helps get their kids, at least get their foot on the door.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Especially with a fairly reputable background as well. I feel like you're just being as good of a player as you were, and with Mike too and his backing, because I'm sure he helps you out a little bit with.
Mike is actually my equipment manager, so his title is MBCN Volleyball Club Equipment Manager, and I have another funny story for you. So Mike mostly, does that. He helps me set up the nets, because we have our own very professional nets. You saw them today.
We
try
at
practice. Yeah. And he helps me set them up, take them down. And, there's a little bit of heavy lifting. He thinks that keeps him in shape. But anyways, I had to be absent from practice some months ago. And I asked them to sub for me because I couldn't find a sub. And one of the 12-year-olds arrives at practice with her mother and says, "Oh no, Patty must be running out of coaches. The guy that sets up the nets is going to run practice."
Oh, great.
So, the mom just could not wait to call me, because she knows Mike's background, and, that's what 12-year-olds can say.
Right.
So, the janitor is going to run practice.
That's awesome. Funny.
Yeah. I love seeing Mike driving around, and you guys have like that golf cart kind of thing, right? He throws his surfboard on top, roll up to practice, throw out a little dialogue to everyone, and then cruise back and go up on his business.
Yeah, and at the USA practices, sometimes he comes as high, and I think he's well liked by just about everybody.
Oh,
M. Dizzle,
everyone.
He has so many nicknames.
Course.
Yes.
Uncle Mike. His coaching background is pretty great too. He was coaching Rosie and Gibb. know the other teams he's coached along the way, but he's coached Rosie and Gibb through 2 Olympics.
Yes,
was it?
so 2/5 of the Olympics, and then he also coached Daniela Lupo and
right.
Paola Nicolai, who took silver in Rio.
Right.
Not
I did not know
under,
that.
yeah. Mike was not coaching them during Rio, but he
Right.
got them started a few years back.
That's right. And did you go, because you must have gone to Italy to go live there for a while to coach them. Did you go with him?
During the summer. So the
okay.
girls and I, we went there for about a month and a half because he had to live in Italy for a while.
Is that when, did you learn Italian while you were there?
I played professionally in Italy a year after UCLA, so I already knew how to speak Italian. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That must have been fun.
Super fun. The food is amazing and yeah, good times.
How was it? Well, I guess I kind of want to compare and contrast a little bit between, so Italy, obviously Daniela Lupo and Nicolai are really, really high level. They're Olympic silver medalists. How does the training in Italy differ, or is it similar to USAV training?
Well, Mike got them started, right?
Yeah,
He
Mike
kind of
got them
their program
started. They came to us from like January until April. And
What year?
2011. Yeah, I remember it was 2 years prior to the Olympics because
Okay.
Italy was trying to make a push towards London.
Okay.
And when they came, they sent a bunch of guys, and we were able to rent a house in Manhattan Beach and bikes, and they will come to practice. And actually, it was surprising that at first it seemed like that high rep work ethic of the American player was not in the Italian player, and there was a little bit of belly aching and all that, but slowly but surely I think they began to understand what needed to be done to get to that level, and they bought into it, and look at where those two are.
Now we got to deal with them.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
And one of the players, actually, Matteo Varnier, became their coach, and he was one of the players, but kind of like the experienced player because Paolo and Lupo were babies when they came, and now he's their coach. So I know he adopted a lot of the stuff that they learned here.
Yeah, Lupo must have been really young because he's only
19.
26, 27 now.
Yeah.
So he was really a baby.
No.
He was Timmy Brewster's age. Gosh.
Yeah, he's got like twice as much experience as I do, and I'm older than him. It's pretty crazy,
huh?
yeah.
It's wild to think about that.
Yeah.
You've coached, a wide variety of teams at a wide variety of levels. Do you tweak your approach, or could you coach a 12-year-old girl almost the same way you would a Reed Pretty? Because it's just getting the reps.
Sometimes you pretty much do that twice a week, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could all happen in the same days. Like normally on Mondays, I have USA senior practice, and then I have my club practice in the afternoon. So it's actually, some things are the same, but I guess it's the amount of feedback. A 12-year-old needs constant feedback on their platform, push the setting to the wind, shoulders to target, call what you see for your partner, what are you reading, what are you, you're creeping in, wait for the set to happen. I mean, there's constantly this talk about so many details. I read pretty at such a high level, there's not a lot that you can say to him. I mean, this last Wednesday, they're actually working on option hitting and making it, the pass wider to the setter, who could also be the attacker. And, we had a little chat over things like that. But yeah, it's the amount of talking that goes on in a practice with a 12-year-old and a practice with the senior team is like night and day. There's little feedback. Yeah.
What happens when you have a player who might need some feedback, who's a pretty high-level player, but ego might be getting in the way? Because I know once at a certain level, an athlete's egos, they're up there. So as a coach, how do you handle that?
We've talked a lot about that at practice we have a daily quote. And I think the focus of a lot of the stuff that we're doing with the USA national team is the growth mindset and being open to learning, being open to trying new things. So far, I don't feel that they're being resistant. Everybody seems pretty polite, incredibly competitive. So,
yeah, I think it seemed the vibe to me is because I have more of a player's perspective, is like you guys have gone about it a really smart way. Is like you're providing supplemental work on things that you see, and people can, if we're running an option, you guys are running certain plays that are not normal. Like that's kind of what the practice is. It's not just like the standard stuff. The standard stuff is for every team to work on their own.
Exactly.
What plays do you want to run in system? But this is like, these kind of practices are like challenging you in different ways that you haven't maybe seen before, and letting you figure out ways to get yourself out of it. And then if you want feedback on it, and if you watch other players do it, you're kind of creating an environment for people to learn how to make their game better in certain situations, rather than being like, hey, this is what we're teaching now. We're the U.S. national team. We do it this way now, which would make everyone freak out and no one would show up.
I think everybody will leave, yes. So the attendance has been amazing. And like I said, the focus is to do a lot of stuff out of system and high reps. Mm-hmm. So in an hour and a half, these guys are pretty wiped because we can get 3 courts going with anywhere from 4 to 6 athletes per court, and we get volunteers there. So I really am enjoying the energy that we have at practice. And like I said, the guys have been pretty respectful of the approach, and some of them are definitely trying these different things. Some of them, like I said, this option wide sets is a very is high skill it takes to do that, and you have to do it over and over and over to get it down right. But the rest of the world is doing it, and they're good at it, so we should be good at it too.
Yeah, a few years ago, like I remember I did a fake jump set, set hiding with no one up, and I put it up on internet, and it was like everyone thought it was really cool, But now I feel like if I post that, it's like it's been done so many times. That's like in system now, So many teams are doing it now. Not that I was the first to it, but it was done a lot. It was done a lot less back then. But now that's like standard in system.
Yeah.
You look at like the Polish teams who are like kind of ahead of the game on that. Like they've bought into it really early on, but now every team is. And I think that's kind of what you guys are trying to get us to do, is buy into where the game's going, and then be ahead of the game on that.
And watch each other, because you get athletes in there that some of them are particularly good at this or that. It's like when we have digging lines, and then you have, somebody like Taylor Crabb or Billy Allen defending, and they're so amazing. They're so quiet as the hitter is making contact, and you can tell that they can read really well. And then, some of the other athletes, they're just moving a lot before, and that's keeping them from making digs. So it's great, for the younger players that don't have that ability yet to see it right in front of their eyes happening. So, hopefully we're all learning from each other.
Yeah, I think it's huge in terms of making our national team better.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of myself. I mean, right now, when I get back out there, you're able to watch someone that you maybe look up to. Let's say it's, it's the Zons, and I said Ben Vaught was out there this morning, whoever. These younger defenders or players, you get to watch the guy that is the best in your country at doing it, step in line with him, step on the court right after him, get the exact same hit from a coach, and get to try to replicate it.
Yeah.
And then if you miss it, you can go back, watch him do it in front of you, get back and do it. Like, that's unbelievable opportunity for these young athletes. And even for anyone at the highest level, you look at, there's always going to be someone who does one particular thing maybe better than you. So it's awesome for everyone to learn.
Yeah, and same thing on the women's side. I mean, the other day we had digging lines, and who was the quietest of them all? It was April. And she just reads and digs like a machine.
Is there any athletes that have been really standing out since this national team practices came? And maybe the listeners will get a little highlight of what might be to come. Is there any athletes that you think are going to be maybe making that next step to maybe closer to April status, let's say?
And on the women's side?
On the women's side or men?
Oh, I'm really excited about what Kelly Reeves is doing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like that.
She brings energy, enthusiasm. She wants to learn.
She's athletic.
Very athletic, coachable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think she's going places. I think Kelly Larson, I worked with her in 2015 and 16, and now I'm getting to work with her again. And, that kid's going places too.
I like it.
We've had Kelly Reeves on, and she is awesome. She just brings like the greatest energy to the table too. Just like competitive, obviously, but just in a good way. Like she's not like putting other people. She's just her favorite word is Gucci.
She says that at practice,
and it's great. Like you just can't be in a bad mood around Kelly Reeves.
You know that I played volleyball with her mom.
Really?
At UCLA for 3 years. Yeah, Jeannie Beaupre Reeves was the setter. So good times with her. And Mom went on to take silver in '84. So she comes from good genes.
Yeah.
She's putting them. Kelly is putting them to good use.
The volleyball world is just such a small one. I mean, someone's mom, and then it's just like a couple years down the road, you're coaching their kid, and their kid's about to take the next step.
Yeah.
Now, have you had the opportunity to coach or work with Sarah Sponsel? Because that's a name that I think, just judging from, she had never played in AVP before, and she makes the finals in straight sets.
Yeah, I got to work with her when she was in high school. She was playing with Susana Muno, another UCLA athlete, and they asked me to coach them at AVP Huntington. I think they were juniors in high school, and they, by 2 points, did not make it into the AVP make it into the AVP tournament. And right away from that day, I was blown away by her ability. I got to work with her a year and a half ago. Was the U21 World Championships in Switzerland, and she played with Tori Van Winden. And she's pretty amazing. And we are hopeful that she's going to start coming to the USA practices. She's in the middle of finals at UCLA, but she's definitely on that top girls to watch. I think she's the best college player today. I was pretty, I couldn't believe that she didn't make All-American first team, but, I did talk to her about it, and she's like, well, I'd rather take a second in the AVP than make All-American first team.
She'll forget about that.
Nothing subjective about a second place in an AVP, that's for sure.
Yeah. Right. So, and it's unusual, because not all women seem to be comfortable with their hands, but she is. And she can set just about from anywhere with her hands.
I saw her laying out for some digs. It was like, this girl is athletic and willing to lay it out there. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and upstairs too, mentally tough. It's hard to shake her.
That's the difference maker right there.
Yeah. She can control her mind pretty darn well.
And you mentioned hand setting, and it seems like that's becoming somewhat of a trend on the women's side. So we see Melissa in Canada. She hand sets basically everything. Summer Ross is starting to hand set a lot more. Kelly Clays is hand setting. Sarah is hand setting everything. I think Sarah Hughes is starting to put her hands on a little bit more. Is that something that you see? Well, one, I'm curious as to why do you think that is, that women are a little bit more hesitant to hand set? And two, do you think that's a direction that the women's game is going, is that it's a little bit more hand setting friendly?
I sure hope that women start to hand set more. During my time, they called any type of little spin, they called it. So I think we were all afraid to hand set.
Yeah.
But I think it's an important skill to have. However, not abandoning the bump setting either, because, you know, when it gets really windy or if it rains, you're going to need your bump sets as well. But at the club, you know, with anywhere from my 10 to 17-year-olds, we teach hand setting for sure.
Anyone who's seen me bump set knows why I hand set everything. I hand set out of fear of bump setting.
I mean, you gotta use both no matter what, whether you like it or not. And I'm a hand setter completely, but if I wasn't a good bump setter, I'd be screwed at the highest level for sure. There's so many sets where you're forced to use your platform, and even like playing in the wind to really like get the ball to spin through the wind, and you got to be good with both for sure. But I mean, I just think logically the ball's the same size the men and the women play with, but the men's hands are all bigger generally. So that's got to be why the women aren't using their hands quite as much. But yeah, more and more, everyone knows it's easier to hit off of a handset usually, right? It's a little easier or most players, right? Most players like to hit off of a handset. It's going to be a little more accurate usually, and there's less time that the ball's in the air actually.
For me, it's easier for me to know where the ball is going. Because, I mean, when you handset, I mean, you're basically throwing the ball. Right. Where you're almost shooting a basket.
Right.
You know, you have a better idea of where it's going if someone's just going to shoot it to where you need it. Whereas, I mean, if it's coming off your platform, the miss window expands by about 3 or 4 feet, I think.
Right.
So it's just easier for me to hit a handset, so I just handset everything.
It's good.
How's your passing game, Travis? If you want handsets, you better be able to back up that passing game.
My passing game is a little suspect.
I guess you're going to be getting some bump sets there.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be getting on your partner for bump setting if you can't pass.
And what do you think makes an athlete like Sarah Sponsel so special? Because, I mean, and two, I mean, same thing with Sarah Hughes. I mean, she won like 104 straight matches in college. What is it that separates athletes like that from those who are taking 9ths and 7ths? What do you think is that kind of edge that they have?
I think, you know, my time with Sarah, I was always really impressed by her ability to control her mind and remain calm at all times. Again, another defender that's pretty quiet and not cheating and moving. She can dig, and she can terminate. So the ability for her to terminate just puts her at a different level.
I like that word. I wish terminations would be the stat instead of kills. I like that word.
I like the word quiet. You kind of bring that up a lot when you're watching, because I've been at USA practices too, and you always like the players that are quietest, like Taylor, where he's just like, he's like a little bug on the sand. Like, can't hear his feet, but he's flying everywhere. But I like that too. Like, it's just like people who are heavy and they have heavy feet, they usually they're not adjusting and like being instinctual. They're kind of just guessing or like trying to overpower, and you can't do that on defense, especially. It's all about like a flow to it, and the best players are all going to be really relaxed, patient. Like that's like Sarah Sponsel seems like she has great patience, and that comes when you trust what you're seeing, and you trust that you're going to make the right reaction, and you trust yourself enough to where you don't have to guess, and you have to like make these big aggressive moves. You can just be relaxed. That's something that you talk about a lot, is relaxed, being relaxed on defense.
Be relaxed, and just the ability to read. And I'm not talking reading on defense only. I mean, you need to have a good ability to read the server, have a good ability to read the passer, because you got to set them. You got to have a great ability to read the set, and so you can get your feet to the ball. So there's just so many opportunities. You know, it's a reading game.
And I feel like a lot of that becomes instinctual after enough experience. Do you think a lot of that just comes with just years and years being able to, like you said, read the game? Is that just almost an experience thing, or do you think that that's learnable like a learnable trait, just like passing is?
I think you need the reps. You need the time. I was at the Dinosaur, is a tournament in Hawaii, and there were two, father, son, mother, daughter duos there. Taylor was there with his dad. I was there with my daughter. And so on the sidelines during the day, I was sitting there with Taylor, chit-chatting, and Taylor Crabb. And they said, well, what do you do for fun? Like, what are your hobbies? And he looked at me like so surprised that I was asking that question. He says, well, here he is playing with his dad at the Dinosaur, which he won. But that's what he does for fun. So he's just getting all those reps. I mean, it's like an outlier. He just has way beyond the 10,000 hours that you're supposed to have to be a pro, because he's seen those patterns over and over and over again.
And the more you see it, the more relaxed you can be, because you know that you're going to react the right way. But the people that don't know and question what they're going to do, like, what should I do? If you have to think about it on defense, it's probably too late, or you're probably guessing, or you're really tense. But yeah, totally. I think you got to get the reps, but also it's how many quality reps do you get? Like a kid like Taylor, I grew up with him, and his dad's a great volleyball player, still to this day, one of the best players for his age in the world. But him and Trevor got a lot of quality reps growing up at the Outrigger Canoe Club. So I think they're lucky in that sense too. Like a lot of players will go out, like the beach rats you're talking about, and they'll just play just to play. But their high lines aren't hitting the corners. They're playing against maybe some junk players where you can just get by not, getting a full approach, or just the small stuff in the sport. But I think some players are lucky to have gotten those really good quality reps from a young age. So I think a player that coming out like Travis here, who's only played for what, 2 years, 3 years?
About almost 4, getting on 4.
I think you can speed that path to getting better at the game and then passing some of these other guys. You can speed up that process by getting a ton of quality reps. Because that's what I think some people have been lacking of theirs. They have a ton of reps, but they're not quality.
One of the biggest things that's kind of helped me along too, and then I stole this actually from Sarah Hughes and Kelly Clays, is that when they were at USC, they would imagine, because they were just leagues ahead of everyone that they were playing, so they would imagine that they were playing April and Carrie, because they had played them on the AVP one summer and they lost. And so at practice, Kelly would hit a high line and it would go down, but her and Sarah would be kind of mad about it because they were like, April scoops that up, no problem.
That's a slow high line.
Just being mindful in practice and knowing that if you hit a bad shot that goes down in practice, it's still not a good shot.
Right.
Because now that I've made one main draw, I'm like, in practice, I'm like, well, Billy digs that shot 7 days out of the week.
If it's not the best shot that you can make,
then it's a bad shot.
It's a bad shot.
Yeah.
Right?
And that is a transition that college players have to make when they go to the AVP. They are so used to having their shots go down, and then when you get to the pro level, the shots are too slow or not crisp enough. So they, making that transition to making them faster or sharper is a really important step.
What do you think is the best or most effective, and I know this is almost an impossible question, but just if you had to pick one drill or activity thing to work on for a beach volleyball player, where would you start them?
Serving and passing.
Serving and passing.
Any combination of that. If you're good at the first touch on offense, if your passing is good, you're gonna have vision. If you can pass on your half of the court, you're gonna have vision. And on serving, if you're really good with your serve, it's gonna make your defense a little bit easier, because that's a lot harder to do.
That's been Reed's thing this offseason. He says your best defense is a good serve. He says if Phil Dahlhauser's in system, then just go walk back into serve receive, basically.
True. Sometimes we actually would, because we trust our defense and what we're going to show and take away, that we would actually give almost like free ball serves to teams. But that's knowing that this particular player is going to come in and barrel, his tendency. He's going to go to his tendency when he has this certain perfect pass and everything's in system for them. But yeah, I agree. But sometimes we give them a freebie and then bait them into doing what we want them to do.
And I know that you do have a busy schedule, so I want to make sure that we cover everything that you want to chat about. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up or talk about today that we might have missed so far?
No, well, I just, I'm really enjoying MBSAN, the volleyball club. It brings me immense joy to see the kids develop their game and make friendships and different partners. It's such a healthy environment to be doing beach volleyball. I have coached indoors, and I knew that when I wanted to have a volleyball club, that it needed to be beach, because it's impossible to make 12 families happy. Right. And so I love that about beach volleyball, that the kids need to be great at all the skills, that if you want to play, you sign up for a tournament. There is no bench. There are no coaches barking or making them run. Well, at least in my club, we don't run suicides because, they're being motivated by success. And it just brings me a lot of joy to do it.
Now, do you guys do clinics as well? Or is it like just like standard club? Like you have to be a part of the club and you guys play in tournaments together and wear your shirts, or is it?
Good question. Yeah. So MBSAN is pay as you go. So okay. I, from being a parent myself, that's what I would have wanted as a parent because a lot of the kids are playing indoors and beach, and indoors is such a long-term commitment, about 9 months, 3 days a week, usually to tournaments a month. Some of the tournaments can be 2-3 day tournaments, travel tournaments. I wanted something where they could come and go without feeling tied down. And so, MBSAN is pay as you go. So you can come once a week, twice a week, 2 times a month, and then the kids sign up for tournaments on their own. There's only one tournament a year called the BVCA, Beach Volleyball Clubs of America. It's a really big deal where you participate for your club. So then, we select our own teams and then go represent MBSAN, and we have to be in uniform. But otherwise, it's a very autonomous sport. And I think that's why the kids like it. They are in charge of their schedule. The families have a lot of freedom of creating, a calendar for their kids that fits in with the whole family.
I love it.
We've had a couple coaches on, and Jose Loyola being one of them, and he said that, for him to be a coach, it took him a while because he said you have to kill the player in you to be a good coach. And it seems like you've just done an awesome job of transitioning to being a coach. Was that a difficult transition for you to make? It seems like coaching and teaching has been kind of a natural calling for you.
Yeah, no, I knew early on that I wanted to do this. And like I said, I just fell into being graduate assistant at UCLA my 5th year. And we won NC2A, and I'm like, oh, right. I like this. I really like this. The fact that what you said, and, at that time, I was so young as a coach, but the fact that what you said had some effect on the player or the play or the outcome, or that the fact that Andy Banikowski had the generosity to include me in practice planning, like I said, I was hooked. But it took me a while to get to that coaching part because I was doing my playing part and my mother part.
Mm-hmm.
And you still are hooked. It's easy to see your passion. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah, it's cool to see how many, there's not that many people, but people like you who are really impacting the sport, you and Mike, in a lot of different ways, like you were just talking about. But, that's kind of what we're trying to do here is collect the knowledge from people like you and get it out to the fans and everybody so they can share and we can kind of grow the sport that way. So we appreciate you coming on for that, definitely.
Thank you so much.
And we like to go ahead.
And I would love for all families and kids out there that are playing, beach volleyball is a great complement to your indoor game. So hopefully if you're being told otherwise, trust us. That is a really good complement to your indoor game.
I second that 100%. That's how my indoor game developed based off my beach game, 100% growing up. But we do have one last question, right? Which is?
So we always like to finish on the same question. You are an awesome guest for this one, actually. So if you were to give a piece of advice to a young up-and-coming beach volleyball player, just one piece of advice,
and
what would that be?
You've given a lot already.
And
Aside from practicing and having some structure practice, schedule unstructured games. Go play for fun. Go figure it out on your own with 3 of your friends. Set up games of your own and get the reps like that, because practice is not enough.
I love that
agree.
one.
Once again.
And where can our listeners find you? So where can they get in touch with you? Or MB Sand?
Yes,
where can they sign up for that?
So the website is MB for Manhattan Beach, sand.com. And yes, you can find me there. My phone number is there. My email address is there. You know, whether you are a player, whether you are a coach, I'm always happy, and I welcome coaches all the time to my practices. I'm happy to share. There's no secret potion to this. You know, it's just sharing the love and spread the knowledge of the game.
Are you guys on Instagram or any of
yes,
that? Yes,
Instagram at MBSBBC, and then Facebook, just MB Sand Volleyball Club.
Awesome.
All right, excellent. Well, we will share that out and tag you guys everywhere. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast during Memorial Day.
Patty,
Appreciate
awesome.
all the help.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delightful hour.
All right, well, have a great rest of the day.